welcome to Generally Irritable. We are here this morning with a special guest who you have seen on this channel before. You may recognize her from some of our interviews at America Fest. Excuse me, Miss Pamlea Garfield-Jaeger, aka the Truthful Therapist. She's joining us today. She is one of the folks that we met at America Fest that we had the most fun with, because she's somebody who, while she takes her job very seriously and she takes her mission very seriously, she also knows how to have a lot of fun. She has a great attitude. She's positive. She smiles, and she makes it not so hard to have these conversations. And maybe that's why, maybe that's her therapy background coming out or something like that. I don't know, but I love the way that she's able to distill down a lot of these conversations about gender confusion, the you know, transgender objectives and things that are going out there. She just has a really good way of explaining it so that you can understand it and not feel so overwhelmed uh by it. Because you guys, a lot of times when we have these conversations, I don't know about you, I start to get really upset. And it's not because people are confused about their gender or they're lost. It's because of the people who are taking advantage of them. When I think about these topics, I get super angry because I know that trans people are hurting. They are hurting emotionally. They are lost. They don't feel a part of. And I felt that way before. I felt that way in my life. And I had great therapists who helped me learn that I wasn't really alone, that I was just looking at things the wrong way, that, that I needed to change my outlook and my perspective, that things really were okay. It was the way I was experiencing my life. It was the way I was relating to the things happening in my life that was the problem, not my actual life. And so one of the things we're going to get to talk about with Pamlea today is what has happened to the therapeutic environment and therapists that now there's this big push. I was really lucky, you guys. When I was in therapy, I had drill sergeants. I had basically like army people yelling at me, telling me to stop being stupid when I was being stupid. And if I had somebody instead being like, "You're right, Ericka, you are just a victim and everyone in your life does suck." And like, I would feel so much more alone. I would feel so much more hopeless. And I think that's why we see the outcomes that we do. People taking their own lives, people turning to drugs and alcohol. So we're going to talk about all that with Pam today because she's the expert, not me, you guys. And of course, we are extra lucky to have Lord Reddick joining us. So let's bring in the whole team. Okay, Benjamin, you were messing with the layout. So bring everybody back. Yay! Hey, everybody, welcome Pamlea Garfield-Jaeger, our special guest, and of course, a darker perspective, aka Lord Reddick. Yes.
Yes. Thank you. Thanks for that lovely introduction.
You
Yeah,
are
we had so much
welcome.
fun at AmFest. She just
Dude.
walked away.
No, I'm right here. I'm right here. I just remembered that I forgot to pull up my soundboard so we can do funny sound effects.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we didn't get sound effects at AmFest. That'll be
No.
fun.
Oh no, you just wait for it. You just wait for it.
Okay.
So why don't you start? Give our viewers the quick, like, 1 minute, 3 minute. I'm Pamlea. This
Yeah.
is my background. This is why I care.
Okay, I'm Pamela, and this is embarrassing, but I'm a social worker.
Why is
And
that embarrassing?
pretty much everything they do now is so bad. If I've been going on their websites and their social media, and it's just insane how radical they've become.
Oh
Like,
no.
yeah, they're now insane. However, when I was coming up the ranks, it wasn't so bad. And at the time when I was young, I thought being a social worker was a good thing.
Yeah.
but I really felt I started off doing more case management. I worked in the inner city in New York City, visiting the projects, working in a Harlem school. I did the kind of the real social worky stuff, and
Mm.
I really enjoyed that, honestly. But I did end
So
up, yeah, go ahead.
so you were like a legit social worker. You
I
weren't
was a
somebody who
legit,
just
yeah.
you were like in the field doing the thing in the hard places.
Yeah, fun fact, I was at the Harlem school that Hillary Clinton visited in 1998 when Monica Lewinsky and Bill Clinton had their scandal. She came to a Harlem school. She was wearing a yellow blazer. I remember this. And that was the news, what she was wearing, because she was trying to cover up and say that everything was great. She came to the school that I was interning at in my first year of grad school.
Okay, so you're doing the deal, you're social working. Okay.
I was social working, and yeah, that's my link to that. So that's kind of an interesting piece of my history. But anyway, I was living in New York for several years. I was there for 9/11. I social worked during 9/11,
Wow.
as you say. I did a lot of grief work, and there was funding for
Mm,
therapists to go out. I got a special training. It's called EMDR, and
mm,
that's for people with with trauma. So I learned all that.
mhm,
And then I moved to California, really honestly, to get away from the whole 9/11 scene. And I figured out really some personal reasons why I think I needed some
mm.
space for my family. That's a whole other thing. I'm not, you're not doing therapy on me today. But I
But
moved I moved to California, and then I got more into started working in foster homes, working with teenagers, and then I got into like mental health programs. They're called IOP and PHP. So individualized
mm,
outpatient program and partial hospitalization program. They are short-term programs that are for people with severe mental health issues that usually
mm.
have been in the hospital and are coming out of the hospital and need a place to stabilize. And it had residential programs. So I did all that. And then I was also a supervisor working in school based counseling for about 10 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So just for because if I don't say it, somebody else is going to. You do not look like you could have been working for 20 years. Is that my
Yeah.
count?
At least, yeah.
If
Well,
you were
there's a little bit of
interning
a
in
filter on the
98,
Zoom. So I can't say all
I've
around.
met you in person. Shut up. But that is, I mean, that really, like, so when I first look at you, and I don't know if this happens a lot, but you look young to me. You definitely
Thanks.
don't, you look younger than me anyway. And so
I
I'm
think
like,
we're
oh,
actually around the same age. I actually
I,
should I say the age online?
I
Oh
just
god.
turned 46.
Oh, I'm older than you.
No, you're not. Well, you would
Yeah.
have to be in 98 if you were interning.
I just turned 50.
Shut up. See, this is what I'm
Yes.
saying. You don't look old enough to have been doing this, to have as much
I don't
experience
act
as you
old. I
do.
act like a little kid still. That's why I'm good with teenagers.
All right, so I'm gonna be fine. This tells me I'm gonna be fine. So you've really, I mean, so you've seen the whole spectrum. You've gone from being in the schools with kids, you're working with people who have, when you say like severe mental illness, are we talking like schizophrenia?
Schizophrenia, bipolar type 1. Yeah, those are the two main ones. Schizoaffective disorder. Yeah, people,
What's that?
substance abuse.
Mm,
It's kind of a catch-all type diagnosis that and sometimes means nothing and means everything because that's how psychology
sounds like
works.
IBS, irritable bowel syndrome. It just means
Yeah.
like you have an upset stomach, but really explains nothing.
It's, like, really bad, but it's very much a catch-all when they don't really know what it is, when you
Okay.
have basically a combination of a mood disorder and, psychosis.
Wow.
So
Wow, wow,
yeah.
wow. Okay, so you've been at this a long time. You've seen it. You've been in the schools. So what was it like being in California? You're in the belly of the beast. That's where
Mhm.
this stuff is marinating, where where it's starting, right? Or germinating, I guess would be a good word. Um,
I
what
watched it
was
unfold, yeah.
yeah, what was that like? Can you give us like a play by play? Was it all at once? Was it gradual? What was that like?
Well, this is part of my story. Is the reason I guess I've become such the truthful therapist is because in 2017 I had a physical disability that forced me out of work, and I was out of work for over 3, 4 years.
Oh,
And
wow.
that's when things really went crazy while I was out, and pretty much dropped out of society because I had such severe pain. I was fighting the doctors in the medical system that wouldn't believe me and didn't listen to me, and it was a whole odyssey. So I was just in that crisis, that physical crisis, and
Mm,
I lost touch with a lot of people. People didn't believe me or understand what was going on. I couldn't do the regular activities I used to do. So I kind of dropped out of society during those years when things were really turning radical, during the Trump years, when everybody started to have this Trump derangement syndrome. And I
mm,
think that's when things really started to set in. And that's when the cancel culture really started to really manifest, because I think there were
mm.
therapists who would think like me that spoke up, but they were taken out, they were canceled, and I was already out. So then I came back to work in 2021 after being gone for 4 years, and yeah, things were so radically different. I call myself Rip Van Therapist. I actually have a chapter in my new book where it's called my Rip Van Winkle story, because I was so things were so different. So
Yeah.
it was starting when I left, but I didn't see it, to the level
Mm,
it was at. But then I came.
yeah.
So I was the last time I was at school with teens was at the end of 2016. This was in Palo Alto, California, the pretty much the bluest town in the entire country. This is
Yeah.
where Stanford University is, for those that aren't familiar. And there was one transgender teen in the whole school. And I wasn't treating her. She wasn't even there for therapy. I just met her a few times. And the school didn't believe she was a boy. They knew she was a girl. And the only thing I was involved in was helping them figure out how they should manage the changing rooms for gym class, and helping her, like, they were just kind of
Wow.
just discussing the accommodations because they knew there was this dilemma.
Mm.
And that's how they looked at it. That was in the end of 2016 in Palo Alto, California. And
Wow.
now, they're doing pronouns, and, boys can be girls can be boys, or you could be whatever you want. You could be a monster, you could be a cat or a dog or a
Right.
dragon, I mean,
Yes.
it's like,
Yeah. Demon self. That's my favorite one. Demon
yeah.
self. I'm like, oh, so you're making yourself a problem. Like, just so you like if
It
telling
sounds
us
fun, actually,
I
think
am
about it.
I mean, that's I oh my goodness, this is so crazy. Um so how did you like what how did you get out? Like what was your I'm done, I'm over it, I can't do this anymore. I'm
Yeah,
out.
my out was the COVID mandate. I think we're on YouTube,
Mm.
so I guess I won't say too much more. Um,
Maybe we'll go to the free speech platforms only
yeah,
if we need to.
I just been through all those health issues, and I have a nerve injury,
Oh.
and I actually was watching people who have my same condition. I was in this private chat group on Facebook, and many of them were saying that they had a terrible reaction to the thing. And so I was very hesitant to take it just for my own personal health reasons. And
Right.
I believed that I was going to get a medical exemption. I still had disability. I was on
Right.
disability. I couldn't even work a full-time job. I still had pain. I still have pain now, but it was worse then. And I just gotten over this horrible surgery that now it helped me, but the recovery was insanely difficult. Um, and I had gotten a rib removed, and then they had to go back in and get scar tissue. This is out of my brachial plexus where there are so many nerves. It literally is the most painful thing
Oh
ever.
my gosh.
So
Okay, so you're like, I've already been through a bunch of stuff. I'm not taking any risks.
I'm
I'm
like,
not
I'm done. I'd been incapacitated for 4 years, and I finally
yeah.
got back. I thought 2020 was gonna be my comeback year, and then, well, we all know what happened in 2020. So I wasn't gonna risk that. And
Okay.
then I watched my husband get the thing, and he had a bad reaction. Luckily, he's okay now, but he went through a difficult time for about a month. And so I just didn't want to do it. And then
Yeah.
I got COVID, and I was perfectly fine because I was actually fairly fit. I was able to run still at that point, and so I was in good shape. And I got that, like, horse dewormer stuff. So
Oh yeah.
So you turned into a centaur. Got it.
I was fine. And then right when I recovered from all that, that's when my governor, Gavin Newsom, the
Ugh.
bane of my existence, said, no, healthcare workers need to get this thing, otherwise you can't work. So I thought I was going to
Wow.
get a medical exemption given everything I'd been through. But no, the state of California didn't allow any doctors to write medical exemptions. I don't know if people realize that. They were allowed to maybe write 2 in total. And if they wrote more than that, they were
Nope.
dinged.
That's what same thing in Vermont. If you were a doctor in Vermont and you prescribed the horse dewormer or any of the other things that were recommended, they would pull your license.
Yeah.
My doctor, so when we got it, we were in Texas at the time, but we still had our place in Vermont, and that was my primary care doctor. And he was like, I can't write you any prescriptions or anything, or I will lose my license. And yet all of our friends in Texas got whatever prescription they wanted, whatever was available, whatever their doctor thought that they could have, they were allowed to get.
I
I
was
mean,
lucky. I got COVID right before that campaign went through. So it was like July
wow.
of 2021. And then I think that's when Joe Rogan, he got sick, and then they used him as the example, and that's when they
Yep.
really cracked down
Oh
on
yeah.
that. That's when that summer.
Yep.
So I was lucky. The timing of when I caught COVID was perfect because I got what I needed from a frontline doctor,
Good.
and I was good. I mean, yeah, I was sick for a couple weeks, and I was actually training for a marathon at the time, and I had to stop training for about 2 weeks because I was weak, and it was hard to I lost my
Mm.
appetite basically.
Yeah.
But I
Yeah.
didn't even really even get a cough or anything. I was fine. I was just really weak. Everyone, I guess it affects them differently, but
Yeah.
That's essentially how it hit us.
Yeah.
I mean, I was down for a day, and then I was relatively normal, like 80%. You could feel the fatigue, but I was, for the most
Yeah,
part,
you were
fine.
still able to work. I wasn't. It crushed me. I got punched in the face
yeah. I was
for
just
a
on the
good like
couch. I was
3
just so
weeks.
tired. Yeah.
Well, and that's what I think the way that they said the symptoms were falling because I have an autoimmune disorder. And so it
Mm,
hit me harder than other people, which didn't surprise me.
mhm.
But again, we didn't even, oh, that's a whole other story. We're not even going to go down
Yeah.
that road. Okay.
So
So,
Gavin the
so
grifter messed up your
Gavin,
situation. All right,
Yeah,
go ahead.
so he
Gruesome
put in the
Newsom, we
so
like to
I
call
had
him
this
Gruesome Newsom.
Gruesome Newsom put in this mandate. I was only part-time, I was per diem. So just think about it. I was so incapacitated, I could barely do anything. The most functional thing I could do was walk my neighbor's little 10-pound dog once a day, and that was like my ability to participate in society for 4 years. After all of this experience and being a professional, I could barely go out to dinner because it hurt to sit up. Like my
Oh
neck was
wow.
so in so much pain, and I would get shooting nerve pain down my arms and headaches. So I finally got past all of that. I was able to work part time per diem, and then this mandate comes through, and um. And I was still wearing the mask at work, which is a therapy program that I thought this was horrible, and none of my colleagues were fighting against it. They were fine with it. And I just was not, I was, yeah. So that's when I was like, F it.
Yeah. So
And
this is,
yeah,
oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just saying, and then yeah, it was so crazy. So this clinic that I was at, it was a PHP IOP program at Sutter Health in San Mateo, California. I was working with the teens and the adults, and the teen program, literally half the girls were identifying as trans, and all of the therapists were not only going along with it, they were cheering it on. And it was like insane. And I wasn't even
See,
that awake to it all yet. Like that, I've
s-
fully waken up to more since then.
See, this is the thing that I don't understand. And because if back in the day, right, and you're talking about working with schizophrenic people. So you literally work with people, and correct me if I'm wrong, okay? You feel free to correct me, but usually people who have schizophrenic disorders see things, they hear things, people are talking to them, right? They're having maybe hallucinations or
Or the
whatever.
delusional thoughts. A lot of them have delusional thoughts,
And
and
so
yeah.
would you were you ever in all of your years of education ever told to go along with the delusions and
Mm,
say, "Oh yeah, yeah, no, you're right, Johnny. You do hear voices."
yeah, no, of course not. Yeah. That's the thing. I mean, many of them would have died if I had gone along with their delusions, because many of their delusions were dangerous.
So why is this delusion now allowable? Like, what happened? Like, why is it? I'm assuming nothing has changed in the treatment of schizophrenic disorder now. Even though we're doing all this crazy trans stuff, they aren't saying now that when you're dealing with schizophrenic people that you should tell them that their delusions are real. I'm assuming.
Except that the schizophrenic person has gender issues.
Then you go along with it. Oh
Yes!
my God. Oh my God. Okay. I can't even. So
Wait.
Yes. So
Say
I
that
was just
again.
telling you before we started, there's something called the WPATH files.
yeah.
And in there, they disclose privately, this wasn't public until it's been exposed, that they're taking severely mentally ill people with dissociative identity disorder, or what used to be known as multiple personality disorder, and they are transitioning them, talking to their different personalities, their different alters, as they call it, to convince their alters that they should go through the transition. This is insane. This is and this is real. Like,
That's what's in the Schellenberger report?
yes, that's what's in the Schellenberger
Okay.
report. It's called the WPATH files.
Okay, you guys, I pulled up a couple of screens to get us
So-
started here. Go ahead, honey.
How are they determining?
Don't even try to be logical. Yes, go ahead.
When you're,
So,
you're saying they want to, they're telling them to transition and talking to the alters. So the primary is the one they were born as.
yeah.
Yeah, usually there's like a primary personality who's like the real person, and then I mean the theory is when someone goes through severe trauma, there's different parts of them that split off. So like kind of like the childlike side of them, or like the older, wiser side of them, or the part of them that was abused, the part of them that might protect. There's like different. That's the theory. So that like someone, like we all kind of have different personas that we put on in different situations. That's normal, right? But when
Yeah.
someone, when they get fractured due to severe trauma, that becomes its actual like personalities. That's the theory anyway. I honestly don't have a whole lot of experience working with that, so
Okay.
because it's really actually very rare for that to happen. But some people say it doesn't exist. I think that people have faked it and it has been exaggerated, but I do believe that it is real in certain situations.
Interesting.
Got it. So it's like split.
Yeah.
So here, you guys, I'm not on. Do I have a Substack account? I don't think I have a Substack account.
Wow.
But I know I hate writing. Anything that requires writing, first of
Yeah.
all, I'm not going to do it. Reading, can it be an audiobook? I definitely was that. I don't know how I got such good grades in school, because I would read like the first few chapters of a book, the middle and the end, and I'd write my report and get an A.
The Cliff Notes were popular when we were young. Do they still do that?
I don't know.
I did Cliff Notes.
I don't know. Okay, so anyway, so you guys, Michael Schellenberger is the one who you were saying really broke this WPATH stuff that came out. When I Googled it, National Review came up first, but basically it's all these leaked documents talking about the stuff you just said. I mean, that is
and video, like private Zoom calls too, that are really damning.
I mean,
them just admitting that they know that there's regret, that they know that there are problems, they know that people are suffering, but publicly they'll say it's all safe and effective and there's no regret, or it's really rare. So
what kind of sick people butcher sick people? I mean, like literally, you have to be, back in the day, we hear about this stuff all the time, how the bad Germans did all kinds of experiments on the God's chosen people. For those of you who don't understand why I'm talking like this is YouTube speak. I'm trying not to get our video flagged. So, you heard about those people doing experiments. Even in America, they were doing experiments on mentally handicapped people, Black people.
Yep.
And whenever I hear
this is a parallel to all of that for sure. I mean, these are vulnerable people with mental illness, a lot of people with autism. These are people who that's the way I see all of this. They are preying on the vulnerable. So that's why I'm so outspoken. And people will call me a bigot or hateful, or that I don't have compassion. It's actually quite the opposite. The reason I'm outspoken is because this is the population that I'm familiar with from all those years of working with foster kids, all those years of working with of people with mental illness, these are the ones that are getting targeted. They're being marketed to, and they are trying to find a way to end their pain, and they're given false promises
So,
to fix their pain.
so Chill asked, do a lot of kids feel like they get special rights and benefits from all this? And I can say from our visit at America Amfest, we spoke to someone who talked about being autistic and that it was he mentioned that he would be drawn to saying he was trans or something in the LGBTQ because it would allow him to be in the in group.
Exactly.
So
They're
to
so
him,
outcast, and then they finally get to feel like they fit in. It just makes
and
sense.
moreover be celebrated for your difference versus shunned for your differences.
Yeah, they
He
get
says,
flags, they get parades, and then they can flub socially, and they get a much bigger pass because they're trans, because people are afraid to say anything.
Yep.
Yep.
Wow.
He also says, follow the money. Who's backing this up?
Yes.
And we did speak to some people who said that this is big business.
Well, and
It's
that's
a lot
what
of drugs.
You look at when Matt Walsh's documentary "What Is a Woman." I'm sure you've watched it. I'm
I
guessing.
have, yes.
Okay. When he's interviewing those doctors and people who do this, I'm just like,
Yeah.
what in
What
the
the-
world? Okay, so now,
I just mouthed it.
oh wait, hold on. What in the? Okay, if I know it's coming, I can bleep it.
You can
I can bleep it.
Or we can talk like this when we really want to be silly. Show how stupid all of this is.
Okay,
It's so crazy that you have to be like this to deal with how insane and painful it really is. I think that's what's going on, right? I mean, yeah.
that it really okay. So now backing up a little bit, I like to tell this story. I want to bring it back to therapeutic therapy. Well, actually, first of all, let's remind everybody we're here today with Pamlea Garfield-Jaeger. You guys need to go check out her new book. Oh, her new book, A Practical Response to Gender Distress. Tips and tools for families. So this is really, and it's, look, you guys, available on Amazon, super easy, $16. You can get it delivered right to your house. I'm going to put a link. I think there's already a link in the description, but I'm going to put a link in the comments too.
One of the things that was interesting from the fest this year was the Save the Tomboys.
That's, I write about that in the book. I have it next to me, and I actually use the graphic that the Gays Against Groomers use. They have a Save the Tomboys graphic, so it's in there. Yeah, that is quite a theme. Just save people who are gender nonconforming, or just they're.
This is okay. Yeah. This is the exact. So here's the deal: if I were growing up today, somebody would try to trans me because I was a tomboy. First of all, there was only boys on my street growing up, so I didn't even really have girls to play with. I didn't even know. You know, I was playing with Tonka trucks and GI Joes. They would have totally tried to trans me. And so
a lot of people say that. And I'm sorry, I feel like I interrupted what you were saying about the tomboys.
Oh.
No, but this is what I was talking about, because Ericka played football.
I was a football player in high school.
You know, all these different things. I was terrible at football, by the way. I was horrible at it. I played. I was sucked. But I wouldn't have a wife today because they would have tried to make her something else.
Well, and it's what they do is, when I was growing up, the whole thing was, okay, men can wear pink and it doesn't matter. You don't have to be gender conforming. But now this gender hysteria actually is saying, oh, well, if you're a boy and you like pink, or you're a girl and you like blue, you must be gay. And it's like, or trans. And it's like, wait, no, we were fighting against that when I was a kid.
Exactly.
Why are you now saying that that's the thing that determined what?
Well, that's why Gays Against Groomers is so passionate, because what's happening is this is the real conversion therapy. It's converting people who would otherwise grow up to be gay to be trans, to convince them that they're trans. So that's why
Wild.
they're so passionate, because
Mm.
many of them would say the same thing. They're boys that like to play with dolls, are really more effeminate, had that
Mm,
temperament, and they're like, they would have been convinced they were trans, and their parents would have been convinced to put them on
yep.
puberty blockers, and then they would have lived with a micro penis for their life and never had sexual pleasure
Th-
for their entire lives. So they're
that's what
quite passionate.
that's why I'm like, can't, what happened to just being gay? Why can't you just like makeup? Why
Yeah,
can't, like,
we're pro LGB, maybe some T kind of sometimes.
here's the
But
thing, I don't care. Here's the thing. The least interesting thing about you is how you choose to pleasure
Totally.
yourself.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
The
and many of them will say that themselves, right?
Yeah,
And this
I
is
don't
about
want
just caring about the well-being of people and their health and their futures, because it's just all about short term. You kind of get this high or maybe feel good in the short term for maybe 1-2 years. Usually the regret sets in about 7 to 8 years
Mm,
later. That's what
Ooh.
most people say. So
I'm surprised it
they
takes
all their
that long.
studies that they say, oh, everyone's happy, they don't follow up for more than 2 years, and sometimes even much less.
We've
So
heard that.
What?
I've heard people
yeah.
feeling
It's not-
deserted, especially if they start to feel like this was a mistake.
Oh,
Then
they're
they
totally
get-
deserted. Yeah.
Yeah, which is really sad.
Oh, well, and
One
it
of the
must
things-
be.
One of the things Chill said was, he said, have the alphabet soup of people around me. All you do is love them. Love can be a good thing to promote first. Things might get close better. So
Wait, what?
basically saying the way through a lot of this is just to love people and try to be understanding, obviously.
Mm,
Because the thing is, you don't dislike the people. Is that there's people in charge that are doing things that are potentially very dangerous for the people that we're talking about.
and
I
and
think the
things that we
weird-
used to know that as a therapist, I'm assuming were part
Yeah.
of your practicum.
Yeah.
Well, I'm actually like advocating both for, like, I'm actually honestly, the reason I speak out is because I actually care about the trans people. They would think I'm a hater, but I just know that they're gonna live with really terrible consequences, and they're probably already suffering, but they're suffering in silence because they don't want to admit it, because the culture that they're in doesn't allow them to admit it. It's very
Mm,
masochistic. So
That's very
Mm.
sad.
and they are afraid to say anything, and I mean, that's what we hear for the detransitioners who have broken out of it. They're kind of the ones that have reached the truth and have the bravery to say it, but there are plenty of people who are suffering in silence.
Yeah, and how hard is it? As I'll speak for myself. How hard is it for me personally to admit that I was wrong about something? Okay.
Mm.
Or that I made a mistake or a bad choice, right? And I might have this, with, I'm a recovering addict. I'm a recovering alcoholic. Like, I can say that. But I didn't like make something my whole identity, force my family into it to identify it, cause a whole bunch of arguments and problems to make you love me,
And
then come back and be like, oh,
was
my
wrong.
bad, I was wrong. Like, it would take so much
Yep.
courage. I bet you that's why a lot of people end up getting into drugs and alcohol or self-deletion, because they are too afraid.
Their
Just double
entire
down.
sense of self is built on that, which is dangerous.
Say more about that as a therapist, like identity, self.
Yeah, this goes beyond the trans. So all this identity
Right.
politics is really creating this emptiness that, I think that's why mental health is suffering more. The fact that we're especially telling kids, and they don't grow up to just be themselves, just be. Like when you're a child in a
Mm,
healthy environment, you're not obsessing about what your identity is. You're
mm,
present, you're in the moment, you're doing what you enjoy, you're playing with your friends, you're learning, you're loving your parents, you're growing up. You're not obsessing about skin color and
mm.
gender and anything, all of these different isms that are out there. So you're putting that on children. It's screwing with their development.
Yeah.
And so, you've got, and we see this in the college students, where their entire identity gets based on this activism. It gets based on whether or not they're doing or saying the right thing. And if they
Mm,
fall out of line, even to themselves, even if someone else even doesn't criticize them, that they feel lost. That if your entire sense of self is based on this kind of falsehood, then
Yeah.
you're bound to struggle.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we're setting people up to do.
And I think we work with an organization called Catalyst Collective, and they have this program called the Purpose Project. And I went through it as a middle-aged person who was, basically having like a midlife crisis. And I was like, this can't be it. This can't be all there is. And it was because I also had built my identity on a foundation that was not stable and was not meaningful and long lasting. Previously it was like my identity was that I was a junkie, and then I got sober, and then my identity was that I was this, 12-step girl, and I was the 12-step girl. And then again, that eventually failed me because life happens, and being the thing is not enough to sustain you. Right.
Yeah, I experienced that a little bit with chronic pain, and I watched people where they took on being a chronic pain patient, or having, it's called that the people with chronic pain, we called ourselves spoonies, and that's a term for people who struggle day to day because they can't do regular tasks easily. So there's only a certain amount of spoons in the drawer, and when you run out of your spoons, then you kind of crash. So if you talk to somebody with a chronic illness or chronic pain, they would refer to themselves as a spoonie. And so it's again another identity.
An identity.
Mm-hmm.
And again, none of those are sustainable. None of those are meaningful identities to build a life where you'll find purpose and belonging.
Like,
right?
it helps feel some camaraderie, and that's what this does. But then, if you take it on too hard, then it gets in the way of your own sense of self.
Right. And that's what the Catalyst says: every human being needs identity, belonging, and purpose. And we'll find it from somewhere. It just may not be good.
Yeah.
And so how do you now, let's hold back.
I want to ask a question.
Oh, you got a question? Okay.
So Chill says, I've been told for my kid to start the drugs when this kid is only beginning high school, and start the drugs for transitioning.
Don't do it.
So the kid is demanding it?
No, they've been
told
for the child.
By whom?
So, doctors?
I'm assuming doctors or therapists.
Yeah, who told you?
So my whole platform, I'll just say, is don't trust the experts. Question. The doctors don't know. I mean, I went through my own personal odyssey where they didn't listen to me. They didn't believe me. If I listened to them, I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you. I wouldn't be able to move my hand.
Wow.
So it's just, so I think that's why I have this personal connection to that idea. But in terms of the trans thing, they've been lied. Many of them, who I think are good intentioned, these doctors, they've been lied to. I've been to some trainings where I was lied to. If I wasn't already awake to this, I would have believed them that everything is reversible, everything's okay, or it's just a little bit of extra hair or an extra, the voice just gets a little deeper, but it's not a problem. But I know the truth. I know that these hormones, get to the surgeries, but the hormones are very dangerous. Of course, it leads to being sterile. For the girls, it brings them into having chemically induced menopause symptoms, and it's very uncomfortable for them. It leads to severe mood issues for many of them. I mean, we've all heard of roid rage, right? And how do we forget about this? I mean, there was this one girl, and I met a girl in the clinic. This is the other thing I reflected on. I wrote this in the beginning of my book, where she was very unstable mentally. She was trans. She was on testosterone, and every other day she was suicidal. And in hindsight, thinking about her case, I was like, why didn't the team question that she was on testosterone and how that impacted her mood? Because she was dangerously suicidal, and all they want to do is keep throwing meds at her. And we had to, stabilize her and get her to the hospital, whatever. But they'd never touch her testosterone. So and these were a team of experts. And there's a detransitioner. Her name is Helena Kirshner, and she's talked about this at length, where it wasn't just one or two kind of like faulty therapists. It was a whole bunch of people in a whole bunch of different settings that all did the same thing in lockstep, where they kept her mentally ill, because as soon as she stopped taking the testosterone, she was stable again. So,
and that's what it's, if people don't understand, okay, you can't even get on birth control without getting blood work done and stuff like that, because
I don't know. I think that's changing, but
I know. Well, back in my day when people weren't stupid and insane, like you can have blood clots. My cousin's wife almost died from blood clots from being on birth control. She went to the hospital and almost died. Like, these are things that we know they cause cancer. We know hormone replacement
Cancer.
therapy causes cancer and all of this. But suddenly we've
Well,
forgotten how science works when
well, of
it
course.
comes to trans stuff.
Just like the disease that shall not be named, it was weird. Pharmaceutical companies were the enemy, and we knew they did wild stuff for profit.
Yeah.
And so now
Think
And now
about
all
it.
there's a disease, they can make a bunch of profit, and there's surgeries that people can choose to get that they can make a bunch of money off of. And now suddenly we've forgotten that they're the villains. Like,
It's weird, right? Yeah.
how did we do that?
okay.
So
So-
it's coming from top down, and doctors, I think a lot of naive and cooperative doctors are listening to who they think are the experts above them, and there's a group think going on. The people that have spoken
Mhm.
out, many of them have been made examples of, so they're taken out of the conversation, and so there's this fake perceived consensus, which is not actually true.
Mm.
So people like me, I was weeded out because I question certain things. I mean, beyond gender. And you think about it, people who ask questions, people who don't go along with rules quite easily, they
Yep.
were weeded out. And
Yep.
so I think that's why we're here today. So whoever asked that question, you might want to think about who's giving you that advice.
Yeah.
Do some research for yourself. And my book really does explain how harmful the hormones and puberty blockers are. It's not a matter of if something's going to happen. It's just a matter of what and when. So
Yeah.
everybody faces consequences. Even people who say they're happily trans, they are facing physical consequences.
That's who he said told him to do it. It was somebody who had already transitioned. But
Yeah, well, a lot of them they ignore it. They say they minimize their own symptoms, or oftentimes they won't feel it for like 8 to 10 years later. I don't know how long that person has been trans, so they'll
Well,
feel it later in life. Like the all of these, I don't know how I'm imagining when these young people become elderly, like they're gonna be struggling. There's gonna be a
if they
whole
make it to being elderly.
True. But I think some will, or many will detransition, but they're going to suffer consequences. They're going to have more joint issues. They're going to have, they're going to have just so many physical issues.
Yeah.
A lot of them have trouble speaking. Their voice, it hurts. Like, it hurts to sing. It hurts to laugh. So their quality of life has come down. I mean,
Yeah.
each one has their own story of the things that they suffer.
Yeah.
Some of the things are embarrassing to talk about, when it comes to their genitals, like dryness and like thinning of the vaginal walls. There's a
Oh, so it's
detransitioner
gotta
right
be
now who's
painful.
been very open about these things. She is miraculously pregnant and about to have a baby, but she has to have a C-section because otherwise, she's not able to have a regular birth. I mean, I
Wow.
don't say it more
Yeah.
graphically than
No,
that.
that's
I
okay.
gotcha.
So, and this is what, one of the things that we started this conversation with was how the so-called experts of WPATH, this is who is being followed. And it turns out that they've known about all of these problems,
They
about
know.
all of the risks, and they've just lied. They've
They
lied about it.
They are
And
completely lying.
and I think it's really important too to remember that if you have a kid who is claiming to be trans or dealing with something, like, what else in their life could be leading them down this path? What else has happened? What trauma have they dealt with? Have they grown up in a stable, safe environment in their home where they feel supported by their parents, where they feel supported by things like, if there is a child, and maybe this is, again, correct me, you're the truthful therapist here.
You're right. What you're saying.
Like look at these other areas of life to address before you go along with your kid being trans.
Yeah, there's always an underlying issue. Really, what this is, gender is not the issue. The gender is a symptom of something else.
Mm.
So, and what you're saying lines up exactly, because if you look at the foster care children, they exponentially have higher rates of identifying as trans because, of course,
They're
they don't
just
have a
feeling
stable
belong.
environment, and they have attachment issues, they have trauma, and so they're going to identify with trans. And what's awful is our governments are pushing that, and they're putting them in group homes, and they're putting them in programs that are encouraging it and indoctrinating them further, but they have that vulnerability. So there are people that are less vulnerable. They can be around this messaging and say, well, yeah, that's not me. But someone who's more vulnerable, they're going to fall for it. They're going to say, well, I have this pain and this is going to fix me, and this is where I'm going to feel like I belong. So of course those are the people that are going to fall into it.
And I think that's, oh, sorry.
No, I had a question in reference to that, but go ahead.
Well, I think it's just anytime there's something wrong within you emotionally and you're seeking something outside of yourself to fix it, right? Like, yeah, sure. I don't like that I'm dealing with some health issues myself, and I've gained 35 pounds that I don't want. But if I say, well, it's not my fault, or if I just move, or if I just, move to a different place, or if I just switch jobs, then I'll be happier, or I'll be whatever. And a lot of times it's not the external environment. Sometimes it is. Okay. Like you might be in a job that sucks and people are abusive, or you have an abusive family. It's possible. I'm not saying that's not possible.
Right. But it's also about you and the decisions you're making. So it still comes from inside of you.
That's what decisions am I making? Who am I deciding to be around? Why do I believe that I deserve this kind of treatment?
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah, there's that book. Oh, so go ahead.
No, I was going to say, but then nowadays you can't even hardly go to therapy and have somebody work that out with you, because like in some states, you're not even allowed to be like, are you sure you're the opposite gender?
Yeah.
Maybe your parents are just assholes. Oops. I should have bleeped myself.
It's a late censor beat. One thing I was curious about with how is T part of the LGBTQ?
Oh, this is
that's
question.
a whole other
So
well, or
P
an intersex, and there's so many other letters that just don't even make sense.
It's not a sexual orient. Oh,
it's
I'm
not.
sorry.
It has nothing to do with who you are attracted to. It has to do with what you think you are.
That's what.
So that's like me saying black should be in the LGBTQIA.
Well, they kind of want to be now too. Like the LGBT want to include you guys like, on that flag. Not. Well, the progress flag, which is the flag that they use. There's a brown stripe that represents like BIPOC. Oh my
God!
You know that, right?
Oh my God! The rainbow is supposed to represent everybody in the first place. This is only
we have a flag.
Stupid human beings could think that they could do the rainbow better.
Wait, there's the American flag. There's the African flags, different ones, and then there's the Pan-African American flag. God. We're not. What are they?
What does that have to do with sex? See, this was the whole the acronym. The first acronym was about your sexual orientation. LGB.
Yeah, LGB. The LGBs are mad about they want there's a whole
the T's
chant LGB without the T. That's their chant. You know that.
So this is intersectionality just starting to erode.
Intersectionality. Yeah, run amok. Oh my goodness. Okay.
This is crazy.
Oh my goodness. Okay. Pamela, you're going to have to come on again.
Sure.
Because we did not have enough time to cover all of the things that we want to cover.
Well, and then my book, I just wanted to tell people for those that are in the thick of it with your child or someone my book, there are two other books, and I've listed them in the back, written by other people in the mental health field, a woman named Miriam Grossman, and then there's three other women that their names are Lisa, Estelle, and Sasha. I looked up to them all. They're great. And they're in the back, so they're there for you too. What makes mine stand out is it's a little more of an easy read, and it's a little, it focuses more on the practical stuff. So theirs has a lot of great information, and I think we honestly overlap a lot in our messaging. But mine really just sticks to very simple facts and really helps you start a conversation with a teenager. And I have a trans English dictionary at the end, which is really fun. That was really fun to write. And it just helps break down the language for people who are just like, what the heck is all this stuff? And when you're talking to a kid, because they love to say, if you don't know the language, then you're on the outs, right? Because there's that whole like in and out circle thing.
Yep.
And so my book really gives you the information so that you can communicate with someone who is struggling with the trans, and to really recognize kind of what you were saying earlier is there's an underlying issue, and really figuring out what that is so you can help that person with compassion.
I love it.
Gotcha.
I love it. So if you guys are watching, again, remember I put the link. It's in the description. It's in the comments. A practical response to gender distress, because I think what you just said is so important, Pamela. People don't know how to fight against it, and these people, they give them tools, right? These kids are given tools to fight against their parents. They're told to be separate and apart
Exactly.
from.
They're
And
being
so
trained.
Exactly. And so how do we, as the compassionate parents, loved ones, family members, how do we respond in those areas? And so I just love that you've given people something to start with, right? At least an outline, an understanding of what they're dealing with. So when they're having these conversations, they're not just listless out in the wind, not knowing what to say, right?
Yeah,
Because
I
it's
was just
hard.
say the struggle too, like we're talking more to a conservative audience, and like, some of the messaging from AmFest, people are so logical, and that's honestly, that's a strength. But when you're dealing with someone who's really in a situation as a trans, believing they're trans, they're not going to respond to logic anymore.
Yeah.
So then you have to figure out how to reach them sort of sideways, and oftentimes conservatives aren't as good at that. So
It's true. It's okay to say.
um,
It's that right, you have to acknowledge a person's feelings, and they have to feel heard.
It's
They have to
sales.
know that you care before they'll listen to you.
It's sales. People don't care how much you know till they know how much you care.
That's right.
Yeah, exactly. So my book really, as a person who's worked with teens for so many years, really acting out struggling teens. I mean, I worked in a residential program where I actually restrained kids. Their behaviors were that extreme. So I know what it's like to work with kids that are reactive and have severe behavioral problems, and I know how to talk to them. So most of the kids who are trans are not to that level, but what I'm saying is I know how to talk to kids. And
Yeah.
so I just give some recommendations. A lot of what I say, though, is for you to trust yourself as a parent, to not blindly trust experts, and to maybe remember that you're the adult, but also figure out how to, approach them and talk to them so that they feel heard. Be present with them. Stay off your own phone, because if you're encouraging them to stay off their phone, there's like all these different things, because a lot of times this happens with a family. Like, they're good parents, but the family's going through something. There's some kind of crisis, and then the trans activists swoop in and take in this kid that's maybe left to their own devices, because it's no one's fault, because something's happened, or maybe they have a special needs sibling, for example, and the sibling has gotten a lot of attention, and the parents their bandwidth is only so much. So then the kind of the good kid becomes trans. So like
Somebody
there's all these
said that.
things. Mm-hmm.
Yes, we heard someone talking about the fact that I think it was the kid that wasn't special needs was trans, and the kid that was like autistic wanted to become trans in order to like be with them,
To
or
connect
be
with
a
the
part of it.
sibling.
Wow.
Yeah. So there's so many different
Oh my
dynamics.
gosh, you
There's no
guys.
one size fits all. And that's
Yep.
also my message. I give suggestions, I give recommendations. I give, like, it's basically a springboard, but I cannot give you a script because I don't know you and your family. I don't know your child. There are so many different situations. There's so many different sort of flavors of why someone would fall into this. It's different often with boys and girls. It's different with kids with, more supportive families that just sort of got indoctrinated, and or kids that have more, the foster kids. So there's all these different, like, I don't know, types, situations.
Mhm.
So I try to cover them all. I don't even think I can, because there's so many,
Oh, it's so much.
So
but
it's
I
like
want
a
people to
football game.
recognize
Yeah.
that.
It's like a
Yeah.
football game. You have 100 plays in the playbook. Here are different routes you can run.
Yeah, it's a good
in
metaphor.
different circumstances. I love it. All right. Well, thank you, Pamela Garfield-Jaeger, for joining us today. Author, The Truthful Therapist. You guys go check out her Substack. Where can they find you? You're The Truthful Therapist everywhere, right? That's your
Yeah, for the
tag
most
everywhere?
part. So my website is thetruthfultherapist.org.
Okay.
My Instagram, where I do funny stuff, is the.truthful therapist, because I think the truthful therapist without the dot was taken when I was doing it.
Okay.
I have a YouTube that just puts mostly my shorts, Instagrams, and some pieces of interviews, is the truthful therapist. And then I have a Substack, which is Pam the Truthful Therapist.
Okay. Fantastic. Fantastic, you guys. Pamela, thank you so much for joining us today. As always, bringing your insight, your thoughtfulness to the show. And we're definitely going to have you back again soon.
Awesome.
Yes.
This is fun. I love talking to you guys.
Yeah. All right, y'all. We're going to close with the commercial.
Nope. You do this every time.
Uh-oh.
Thank you to our viewers who've
thank you.
engaged and talked with us. We see Chill, Lena Pastanas. I see Lissa. It's Lissa, y'all. NinjaBot 1979. Appreciate the engagement. Thank you for chatting with us.
All right. All
Thank
right.
you.
Make sure to like, share, and subscribe, y'all. See you later. Oh, wait. Hold on. Now I'm not ready anymore.
Oh
you're
no,
not.
I'm waving and I'm stuck.
This book will give you wings.
What kind of wings?
Not like Icarus wings, like eagle's wings.
What about dragons?
You'll have dragon's blood. You'll be able to breathe fire.
Fire like the Ultra Eagle Dragon.
This book will make you smarter.
Yes.
I'm not just talking honor roll smart. I'm talking Nikola Tesla smart. You'll be so good looking, Brad Pitt will be jealous.
Do you want to make money?
How much money?
Elon Musk money.
That's a lot of money.
People will think you're Elon Musk, but you're not Elon Musk. But they'll think you're
Elon Musk, because you pay taxes like Elon Musk.
And you have to argue with Elizabeth Warren because she thinks you're Elon Musk. Do you want freedom?
How much freedom?
All the freedom. One to America. How much freedom do you want?
America.
Double America. Yeah.